Hey, you are listening to BTS Podcast. I am your host, Lene Cook. On this episode of BTS, as you probably noticed in the title of it, assuming that you read the title before you started listening to this, Dru Decaro, who is a professional guitarist as well as an executive producer and a music producer, is on the podcast. Dru is a longtime friend of mine. We get into that during this conversation. And somehow, with the amount of time that we were hanging out and talking, I forgot to ask him a major question, which is super important, in my opinion, when talking to people with titles that I guess are a little bit nebulous to anyone who's not in the industry. And I forgot to ask him what he feels the difference between an executive producer and a producer, and by that I just mean flat out a producer, are. A lot of times we hear people say, I'm a music producer. We see credits on albums saying that this is the producer for a song, and then this is the executive producer for an album. Dru recently was the executive producer for the first time on two records, one with Vic Mensa, the other was Christian French's new record. And so he shot me over an email and defined this for me. So I'm just gonna read off his email right now. Dru wrote, in quotes, executive producer is a title that is kind of ever-changing, sort of like the record industry as a whole. It's different one day to the next. It used to be that execs were managing the recording budget, business details, scheduling, big picture stuff. As to the work I do on a project these days, it's still big picture, putting little touches on all the records and seeing how they fit together as a whole, just being around throughout the process and helping guide the whole vision. It's easy for us to get lost in all the details of making up an album, all the different people and feelings, and it's just sort of this huge, living, breathing thing. So it's good to make sure someone is keeping the goal well-defined at the end of it. And then he goes on to define a producer, and he says, whereas the work I do as a producer is way more zoomed in. What's the hi-hat pattern going to be? How does the bridge go? Should we harmonize this part or leave it as a solo vocal? Both roles immensely important. Smiley emoji. So I appreciate him getting back to me on that. I think that is really huge, just in knowing what those terms mean, whether you have friends that do this or you're thinking about being a producer yourself or whatever that is. I think it's important to know the difference because it's nice to know things. Anyways, I hope you enjoy this episode. Just a quick reminder at the top of this, your support is super appreciated. It is how I can get sponsors and just, help support me as a creator. Oh, creator sounds so weird. Creative, a person doing stuff. Anyways, I only plug services and products that I use and or believe in. Like, I've used them and I also like them enough to recommend them. And one thing that I love and use regularly is Hotel Tonight. They are great for last minute hotel bookings. And they're just, the level of hotels that they have on there is really great. I've never had a mediocre hotel experience with them. And I've used them in big cities, domestically and internationally, as well as smaller cities like Santa Barbara. And they're just great. So if you use lcook61 on your first Hotel Tonight booking, you'll save, and then I'll save on my next hotel booking. I try to, be as budget friendly when I travel, but sometimes I don't have friends I can stay with, and or I also need space as a person and want to record a podcast, which, if I'm already staying with a friend, it feels a little bit imposing sometimes to then have somebody over to record a podcast in someone else's home. So anyways, you using that or sharing it with people to use my code would be great. Please do subscribe, rate, review, that helps. Share this with your friends. If someone you know wants to be in the music industry or in any other sort of industry or role that I have had people on as guests from, that's really a weird way to phrase it, but I think you know what I'm saying. Please do share those episodes with them. I do believe that information sharing is how we all grow and can stand on the shoulders of giants, so to speak. We should all be, in my opinion at least, helping each other out all the time with the information that we have and the tools that we have. Yeah, that's about it. I hope you enjoy this. The music that you're hearing right now is by Benjamin Betharam. He is great. You can look him up. There is a link to his SoundCloud on the description, or I guess in the description of this episode. Enjoy. Welcome to BTS Podcast. This is Lene. I'm super excited to be here with my friend Dru Decaro. Drew, did I say your last name right?
There is factions of the Decaros who call it Decaro, and there's other factions who call it Decaro.
Oh.
My family is split on it. They can't seem to come to a conclusion.
I'm not surprised by that.
Yes, they like to argue. I seem like they made that up for one more thing to argue about.
That's beautiful.
I've started to go with Decaro because it damn near rhymes with guitar, and so that's as good a reason as any, I think.
Oh, Dru Decaro.
Yeah.
Oh, Drew. At any rate, I'm super happy to be here with Drew. We are recording on, dare I say, much fancier equipment than I typically record with. We are in his studio in just a little bit north of Hollywood, also known as North Hollywood.
Thank you for that. Shining that spit shining just north of Hollywood. Just north of Hollywood in Bakersfield.
Right, exactly. It's all about branding, you know what I mean? As my good friend Kevin Wolf once told me, it's just about branding when asked on how to be successful at anything. So
I would totally agree with that.
Well, he's very successful, so he wins. Drew and I have known each other for some time. He is and has been a touring guitarist for some time, and he's also an executive producer. He has been nominated for 2 Grammys, and you're the executive producer on Vic Mensa's new album, as well as Christian French's albums,
yes.
Correct? More than one?
These are my first 2 executive producer credits.
Okay.
And they both happened in the same week, as it turned out.
Beautiful.
So they
When it
happened
rains, it
over many
pours.
months, but they both dropped this past week.
Right.
So this podcast is timely.
Oh, well, hopefully it'll still be timely
So
when
I
it
can
comes
brand
out,
that
whenever
shit.
I'm done.
Right.
Whenever I'm done editing it and all that.
Next year is a matter of hours away right now.
Don't remind me. Way to age this episode already. It's just a few days before Christmas of 2018.
Is that bad podcast etiquette? It probably is.
No, because you know what? I recorded an episode with Karen Okonkwo, the first episode of this podcast, I think in July. And I was like, oh no, this will launch in a few weeks. And then it launched in November.
Yeah.
So here we are. Well, I think I said it would launch in September. And then whatever. Time is just,
I think
it's invented. It's a human construct.
It's a human construct. And also, I just dig like vintage stuff. So it's cool to be.
Is that why you're friends with me?
Yeah, because like check out your vintage Vans. Actually, those are fresh. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what it was. I was going to come under the desk right there. But yeah, I don't know. I like stuff that's super urgent, but also kind of gives me anxiety, like being super up to date on what's happening right now. I like to read old books and have old beat up guitars and just take my time with shit.
Just be slightly outdated.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's a downside to it as well, but just that it's new is like not enough of a virtue to me.
Agreed. Yeah, I think there's also something to be said about things that withstand the test of time.
And something that I wasn't there for.
Yeah.
So I can relive it. Like if it's right now and I'm in it and it's part of my era, it's cool. I'm here. But there's a lot of stuff to consume. Mm-hmm. And so you just can't do it all. And you can't do it all immediately.
Right. Yeah. Otherwise, you would also then do nothing.
You would do nothing. We're getting right into the existentialism out of the gate, and this is what I need.
This is, I think, how all of our conversations go. But I think, it is, especially when you are a creative, really hard to stay. In fact, I was thinking about on my way over here about making a calendar for myself.
Of yourself.
Of myself.
Yes.
To show me, when to carve out time for consuming and when to carve out time for creating, because it's so easy to just create and to get super tapped out and then not have any input that's changing the way you think about stuff, because you're kind of just grasping at thin air when you've just been outputting with no input. There's for sure stuff that you get inspired by and comes out of that, but then on the flip side you can go I've seen some people go oh, I'm just gonna go get inspired, and then they read and consume for a long time, and then none of that turns into anything, which maybe it does eventually, right? Like,
right. Well, that's part of the process, and everybody has their own process. So those of us who can just turn it on, I think is like a fantastic gift. Turn on being inspired and like being pumped up.
Right.
But before I lose it, I was going to ask you, do you consider yourself a really organized person? Like as you're making your calendar, or are you on some like super flighty artist type thing?
I think.
I bet you can guess which one I am.
Oh, I can't imagine that I can, Drew. Because also you're, and maybe this has come with like just time, but you're more organized than a lot of artists I know. Like I've never seen you. I've seen you kind of like not be productive for like in a sense for a certain amount of time, but you never.
How dare you? That's like a dagger.
But I feel like it's because you're figuring out what to produce, like what to do. Not because you're just like you have nothing, but you're just trying to figure out like which direction to go. I think that I don't think that me being organized is inherent. I think it's like tools that I developed to like be able to get the things I want out of life.
Way more respectable, in my opinion.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, some people do have it inherently, but like
right.
if you're just making a really concerted effort to do that, I think that yields serious results.
I've also scaled back on some parts of being organized because I realized that some of it was also not being productive. So like there's some levels of organization. Like when I was, and I think part of this too may also been me as a kid trying to like find some rhyme and reason to things and make things stable for myself when I felt like there was a certain amount of instability. Or perhaps because my parents were really strict and so I wasn't allowed to do a lot, so I would just find things to do. But like I would fall apart at the seams at cleaning my room because I couldn't just clean my room. Like I would empty out every drawer and then fold like my underwear and organize everything. And then like, God forbid I had like a piggy bank because
folding female underwear is OCD as hell.
Absolutely.
There's literally no point.
And if I were to vacuum my room, all the lines had to be a specific way. And then at a certain point I went like, wait, what am I doing this for? Like, I think maybe it was a form of procrastination. I don't know. But it would take me like 8 hours to clean my room as a kid because
I think I relate.
I don't know. I would get into like, you know, the things that, what are those things called that your closet slides in?
Tracks?
Yeah, I would get into the tracks with like a Q-tip and tweezers.
I don't relate. Never mind.
Like it was very extreme, but I think it was just me not really understanding what the request was when really the request was like, hey, make your bed and just put things away where they belong. And to me, it had to be like a complete overhaul.
Your folks were after aesthetic early on.
Right.
They're like, sweep the shit under the bed and then do your homework, you know?
Right.
And you're like, oh, you want me to clean my room? Well, guess what? You're not going to see me for 3 days.
I treated cleaning my room in the way that like people should be approaching like how to solve homelessness because like I was like, this is a complex issue with many problems.
Well, at that age too, I'll give you some credit because your room that's like your first domain.
Right.
And you know, my room too was like where I discovered the guitar and my favorite music and like the posters I had on my wall. I'm gonna tell you this is total tangent, but there used to be this magazine called Nintendo Power. Might still be a magazine, and it would tell you like little tips and tricks for video games, and there were always tons of posters in it, you know, the fold outs. This is before I was hip to the Playboy Playmate fold out. This is pre Playboy Playmate Nintendo
Which
Powers.
came first, do you think?
Like to me, I was a nerd and I maybe have never set that aside, but the walls of my room were adorned with kick-ass posters from Nintendo Power, and it was mine. And then one day I come home and my 2 little sisters had just destroyed it.
No.
These 2 who have become my best friends, but at that point it was war, and they tore it all down. And those posters were free and they were torn out of a magazine.
Doesn't matter. They were yours.
Exactly. So there it is, and clearly I've not let it go.
Yeah. My first lie was about peeling the wallpaper off the wall.
Your first lie?
My first like remembered lie.
You remember this. Wow.
I have an
You are a real angel.
I have a weird. I was probably 3.
Oh my!
Or 4.
Getting started early.
No, I must have been like 4. Maybe I was 4 or 5. It was like my first for real lie.
Yes.
Like of course I'm sure I had the other lies as a kid, but that was like the first for real one. And the wallpaper was like for sure above my bed. But my brother and I shared a room at the time, and he was maybe like 2. Like he for sure was barely like walking and stuff, and I definitely blamed it on him.
Yeah. And did it go over?
No, they knew. They knew it was not a
That's
toddler.
why you remember it as your first lie, because you didn't get away with it. It would have become truth in your memory at this point if you got away with it. That's how we work.
Oh,
Not we, you and I, but just like...
It is how I work.
Just bad humans generally.
Yeah. I would not categorize myself as a...
So this is what it is. It's the first lie you remember telling for which you got caught.
I think it was, well, I mean, but I also remember learning how to walk. So, like, I have a weird...
That's very strange.
But then I don't remember other things. Like, I had to be reminded that I had gone bungee jumping because I forgot.
Huh.
So, yeah, I have a weird... It's not even selective because, trust me, I don't, like, choose to remember the song order of, like, a Smash Mouth album.
Stop it.
Yet I do.
Jesus.
Push You Mang got a lot of play in my life.
Oh, stop while you're ahead. You know, do you think, I don't remember the name of the, like, what's the scientific name for it, but you know how some people remember every single second of their life?
Yeah.
Cool. Good thing or bad thing?
You know, I don't think it's... I think it's good and bad. Like, but how could it be bad? Because
I think it'd be awesome.
I think it'd be cool. And I think a reason that I remembered a lot of stuff as a kid was I had a lot of time to think because I wasn't that busy. I wasn't allowed to do a lot of stuff. So I was just home a lot. But I grew up around a lot of old people. So at like the end of every day, up until I was probably like 8 or 9 years old, I would replay everything that had gone on that day and try to name in my head everyone who was in my class that year, the year before, like down to kindergarten, and that kind of stuff would help me fall asleep. But it was also what I did because I grew up around a lot of old people who couldn't remember stuff, and I was like, I don't want to get like that. I'll just replay everything in my head at the end of every day.
Dare I kick off the
actual
sexist?
podcast? Oh.
Dare I kick off the actual podcast where things get contentious and say that seems like a utterly female trait?
I don't know.
At the end of the day, or beginning, or middle, or throughout, be recounting every detail in vivid color and consider all of the different ways it could go or should go. This type of, like,
potentially, yeah.
Yes, just surgical, like, anyhow, I'm sure men do it as well, but
I mean, I'm sure it's one of those things that's like
I don't. I will say.
Oh, no, I'm just saying, like, sometimes generalizations, I mean, there's that whole thing, right? I mean, I remember learning it in school for sociology where they were like, yeah, this is like the general rule, which means it doesn't apply to everyone. So, like, when we say XYZ is typical, stop raising your hand and telling me about the one time you saw an exception, right? And
Amen
I think
to
that, like, that thing of, like, really thinking about human relationships, because I would think about all that stuff and I would think about what my funeral would be like a ton from like 4 or 5 years old on, like, was regularly on my mind.
Do you have something dialed in? You should put it on wax right now because people will want to know and deliver for you. So hit us.
Man, I have a lot of ideas. It depends on how old I am.
Have you written
how
it down?
I die. It's in my cousin and I were just texting about.
If it's in an old composition notebook from 6th grade that no one's ever going to find, that cannot.
You mean you're all not going to cherish my diaries? That's my life's work, Drew.
Yeah, true that. Yeah, well, as
you can learn about RJ, my crush from the 4th grade.
RJ.
Shout out to RJ.
Oh, sounds like a badass. Did he skateboard?
He wasn't, but he played guitar. So he didn't skateboard. The skateboarders were always on my radar, but I didn't really find any cute ones until the 6th grade.
You can only play guitar great or skateboard great. You can't do both of them well.
That's not true.
Never seen it happen. I mean,
really?
I could be
my friend's husband, Remy Stratton, kick-ass skater. He was a pro like through the late 80s and 90s.
Okay, then he's a mediocre guitar player.
And he's in a rad band. He's a good guitar player.
The band could be rad.
He's sponsored by Fender, I think.
A lot of people are sponsored by Fender. Like,
he's a rad guitar player.
Obscene amount of people. And I don't even, what's his name?
Remy.
Shout out Remy for being a a Renaissance man.
I mean, he is. He's also a really great photographer,
the Renaissance man would even
videographer.
tell you oh no, I'm not. I don't play guitar that well.
Well, yeah, because he's a decent person with like
and band dudes in
self-respect.
kick-ass bands, that's how they treat it. They're like, oh, I don't even know how to play. So and they're generally right.
Yeah, well, I mean, but that's also just like there are very few people who say that they're good at what they do and that I also like them as people. You're one of them because you are aware that you're good at what you do, and I like you as a person. But you also put in like time, and it's like your profession. So it would be weird.
And I go around talking about it all.
But it would be very weird if, like, as a touring guitarist, who you've toured with, well, most recently Vic Mensa, and prior to that Miguel, and like we met through Ski Talks, like that project with DJ Skee.
Oh yeah.
So you tour with a lot of people. So like, in the same way that I would not get paid for what I do if I were like, no, I'm not that good. Like, you have to say that you're good because you are, but also how are you going to be like, yeah, you should work with me if you're like.
Check it out. I have so many things to add to this conversation because you know how I was just a moment ago musing that I don't sit at the end of the day and like recount in my brain. That was a lie. For sure, I spend a ton of time pontificating. This era we are in, I think, really rewards self-congratulatory behavior.
Yes, and it's frustrating.
It is really frustrating, particularly because I think you and I come from an era just a scotch before where it was cooler to not care and it was cooler to be angsty. And that is also exhausting. But,
well, we come from a culture of that because even like think of the people before us, right? There have always been those people that have found success financially somehow by like bullshitting their way through stuff. And I think we were taught a lot of that and just neither of us subscribed to it because I think about, you know, how many times have either of us heard like fake it till you make it and like, you know, you'll figure it out and like all that stuff. And like we've for sure worked with some of the same people together who have an era and like vocalize their own self-importance and how good at they are at stuff and
it really works
and it can really work. That's just not who either of us are.
Can't do it.
And I can't. The thing is that, and I've tried it.
And
like
I need to get over being proud of it too.
No, I don't think so because I think
a shit like nobody's giving us anymore a trophy for humility. There was a time. No longer.
So I think the difference is that I need to be able to. For me, it is that I've noticed that I have more respect for the people who are quieter about it. And so I need to be able for my own like self whatever, be able to be that way. Because also I think the people that you attract by like being your own like whatever the equivalent of like a squeaky wheel is when instead of complaining, you're just talking about how great you are. Chances are I probably don't want to work with those kinds of people that are attracted to that false sense of like importance.
Yeah.
And I would much rather be like a quiet, like behind the scenes.
Yeah.
It's literally the name of the podcast.
Yes. Branding.
I would much rather, like, I have so much respect for those stories that I've read with people where it's like, oh, this is like quietly the producer of like all these hit records or like this super sensational guy who's like specific to having an incredible audio library and like this designer who's behind all the stuff that you just don't know. It tells me a lot that I have a lot more respect for those people than the people who are always talking about how great they are.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to, for me to respect myself, I can't feel that way. It's like,
I'll tell you, my half-baked response to that is I too love art. We'll talk about artists because that's who I'm generally like, overthinking this about is like my business, right, of music and entertainment. And artists who don't take themselves too seriously, I feel like I really love, as opposed to the ones who are out here on some like talking to money on the phone and like trying to make a point of how rich or successful they are, or however you want to characterize that like total lack of humility. I too like the sort of silent killer, but what I, as an artist and producer and creative, have to wrangle with is just because I am or have been like that doesn't mean that it's a virtue to like keep on being like that. You know what I'm saying? It's
not a virtue, but it's who you are.
Like the game changes. The game changes, and like what we find to be valuable evolves, and so I too can evolve, and that doesn't mean that I have to like fundamentally change who I am or whatever, but you just try to find like, okay, there's these dudes that like, you know, whatever, DJ Khaled's on Snapchat being loud and obnoxious, and my instinct is to find that to be just completely tasteless. But the game changed and the game evolved, and I too am part of the game, and so I'm evolving, and so you just try to figure out a way to be like, oh shit, that's cool and amusing. You know what? I don't need to look for socially redeeming shit from DJ Khaled's Snapchat. I can look at it the same way that I looked at a Slurpee, where it's like there's literally zero. This is not even a good characterization, although DJ Khaled on Snapchat is a perfect example of what we're talking about. But to articulate how I feel about it is a little bit more of a mess. Point being,
would you respect your fans though? Like if you knew that you had shifted to doing something similar, like but your own version of that, and then people recognize you and see you and are like, "What, Dru? What's up?" You probably wouldn't like those people.
Yeah, it's hard. I don't hate my fans, but
right.
But there's a lot of people's fans. Yeah, a lot of people's fans are lack taste. You know what? This is a slippery slope. I don't even want to downplay anybody who loves what they love. Yeah, whatever they love, they love. I'll say it about Khaled that there was a perfect time and place for that level of ego stroking.
Yeah. And fun, because he has fun.
He totally has fun, and that counts, and everybody does it their own way.
Yeah.
And you and I think that like we're on some real like slick shit, and like that's fun to us. I don't think that. It's just what I think like better. Yeah, it's just what I like. Yeah, that's cool. It's taste.
The thing is if I were true to that and for real slick, I wouldn't have a podcast because I'd be like, no, I can't just put it out there.
Yo, perfect example. Having the podcast is being like, what I have to say is worthy of people listening to. So it's your little microcosm.
Which took me a long time to get here.
To get there, yeah.
Honestly, because I thought for a while about making this like in written form, and I couldn't. Honestly, I was like, you know what? If I'm going to get this same concept that I've been noodling on and kind of honing just over the course of ever since I thought about like, hey, how come these people that I meet and are cool and these other people who I enjoy hearing stories from, like I only hear from them when a magazine decides to do it or whatever. Like I want to get what they have to say out into the world and like share information. And then written form wise, I was like, oh my God, I have to make a website and then do all this stuff and then and then how do people find it? And like,
way more work. And I knew I would want it to be perfect. And then I was like,
the
written word is great.
The written word is great. With such an abundance of it though, I was like, wait, shouldn't I just do that for something that already has a following instead of trying to start my own?
Just publish your diary from middle school.
We were just talking about my middle school diary.
Yeah, just publish
prior to starting. Yeah, right.
Just straight up do it.
God, my cousin found mine and started reading it to me like last year, and
that's great.
It took all physical control I had to not tackle her and rip it out of her hands.
Because you would be embarrassed of it, like
it just
this
was
many
like,
years on?
You know how some people are like, I can't watch myself on screen. Or like, I can't listen to my own voice. I can do all that.
Yeah.
Hearing somebody read to me what I wrote down, especially then.
Yeah.
Oh, man. It feels like it feels like somebody.
I wish I could feel that. I wish I had a diary from that era.
Threw their hand inside of me and are like pulling and like not even pulling out my guts, which would be like a much more humane way to go, but just slowly scrambling them like it's terrible.
I so wish that I had that, but I do love nostalgia in all of its
I love
shapes.
Nostalgia.
Yeah.
That to me is not nostalgia.
Okay.
Because that to me is not like
nostalgia, but it's
I don't have a lot of respect for myself in certain areas of my life.
Okay.
And that is one of them.
Yes.
So like nostalgia to me is I get stoked when I find like drawings I did, or like I was a little bit of like a tyrant growing up. Like in general, I would like force my cousins to do these plays with me, and I at one point decided that the neighborhood kids needed to be in a band with me. And I wrote all the music ahead of time, approached them all, taught them how to play.
Do these people know that you're a drummer of great repute?
false
Was I supposed to keep that on the low?
I am a drummer.
Because I refuse.
Of no repute.
I refuse.
I am a mediocre at best drummer with, a lot of charisma.
Okay, that counts. They did a sidebar. They did a whole expose on Meg White on NPR yesterday.
Really? Oh, that's
on
lovely.
Meg fucking White drumming
Mediocre.
on NP fucking R.
That's beautiful.
It's incredible.
That's awesome. Actually, there's this band Potty Mouth, and I shot them one of their shows and sat down with them and talked to them for this interview for Bands in Town. And they are actually who pushed me to be more comfortable with like playing in a band properly again, because they had read what is her name, Vivian, I think, from the Slits.
I don't know her name.
Anyway, so they read her book and they were talking about how she'd said like she was feeling that same way of like, oh, I can't put myself out into the world until like my craft is perfect. And then she was like, wait,
it's an old school approach.
It is indeed, for sure.
Back to what we were saying. Yeah. You have to you have to let everybody watch you fail at this point.
Which, yeah, in fact, I've thought about getting on Twitch and then just streaming me learning how to play piano, and like
that would
let everyone
totally go.
I think it'd be cool because like I can play, like I could even do guitar, like because I did play a little bit as a kid, so I have like a few of the fundamentals down, and I already have a guitar. I wouldn't have to buy one, whereas like a keyboard, I'd have to buy one, but. I've just been thinking about streaming that and just being like, yeah, you could just watch me mess up all the time.
I think that'd be a great social experiment.
Yeah, same. I'll do that. Soon.
And at the end of it, even if it sucks, you learned how to play.
I learned how to play guitar.
Yeah, so that's awesome.
So anyways, the lady from the Slits, in her book, she talked about how she was feeling that way, and then she was like, wait, like the Sex Pistols aren't good at playing their instruments, they just play. Like these other bands, these like bands that guys are in, they're not like, hey, I need to be perfect. They just go out there and do what they want. Why do I? And that made me go like, yeah, why am I so like
yes,
that?
the punk rock aesthetic.
So shout out to Potty Mouth for inspired.
Inspired by Viv, inspired by Sex Pistols, and
totally
on and on it goes. Yeah, but yeah, that punk rock aesthetic is actually, it's such a cool thing to bring up, because as I'm sitting here, criticizing it on one hand, that's exactly what punk rock is like just celebrating your perfect fucked upness. I don't know why I like it better when it comes through the medium of punk rock than when it comes to the medium of DJs, but it just says something about who I am, I guess.
I think also to me it's like in the spirit of punk rock and in the spirit of and punk to me in general does not just mean rock. Like that to me a lot of what Odd Future does, and especially at the beginning, is very punk.
Totally.
They're amazing.
There's like punk shoe designers.
Yeah, for sure. So it's a different thing. Wait, can we switch gears? What was your first show?
Santana and Jeff
No,
Beck.
no, that you performed.
Oh, that I performed?
Yeah. Oh, was your first performance not with Carlos Santana? Never mind. Get off my podcast.
And it's been uphill ever since. The first show that I ever played was 8th grade, somewhere in middle school, at Morgan Reed's birthday party at the clubhouse in our neighborhood.
In Baltimore?
Yeah. Outside of Baltimore.
Drew's from Maryland.
Yeah, Baltimore, Maryland. Yeah, this was outside of, just south of Baltimore. But me and my best friend Brad Ray.
I'm only laughing because the guy I'm in a band with, we have a joke of just always calling each other our best friends.
Best friends.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
and also I'm a child.
Freudian slip. We had a band, 4-piece band. It was called Plaid, and we played. Yeah, it was very right on point, right? Because like Pearl Jam was all the rage, and you just had to have a kick-ass plaid flannel shirt. But we played at that clubhouse, and recently I found a photo of it too.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah, and we played 4 songs, and I'll always remember exactly what 4 they were. There were 2 of our originals, and then Green Day. Brain Stew.
Oh, such a good. That's one of my favorite Green Day songs.
And Silverchair Shade, I believe, which is a great song that everybody should go listen to right now if you missed that.
I will do
era.
that. I might just slip it in a moment of it.
Spectacular song written by like 16-year-old dudes, and it is absolutely top level artistry.
I remember Silverchair. I remember liking them.
Still doing it. Daniel Johns is
song.
still a really cool artist, still releasing records and just doing his whole thing.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So we played those 4 songs, and at the time I was not interested in girls really. I had found the guitar.
Must be nice.
I know. Yeah.
I've been boy crazy since like birth. I think I was born just being like, let me meet a man.
It's what allowed me to take the guitar up. If I had been super into girls, I think I probably would have been distracted. But at that time, proud to say that there was no ulterior motive to playing that show and like betting some chick. It was really just
I should hope not in the 6th grade.
Oh yeah, well shit, man. I mean, these kids are crazy these days. So Plaid, that was
what was
it.
the first show you got paid for?
Well, early on, or at least in that part of the world, the East Coast, Mid-Atlantic, and in that part of the music industry where bands were really a thing, we would get paid, but it all went into the pot. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like for all those early shows when I was in Baltimore playing with my local bands, X-Ray,
yeah, but
Into
like
Science.
Surely
so we were
you
getting
did not
paid.
Get paid for that 6th grade show.
I did not.
Right, that's what I mean.
So shortly thereafter, we started getting paid to play shows, but I never saw any of that money. We would like keep it and then try to buy new gear, try to pay for the CD to be recorded because there were CDs at the time. And that I never made any money. I guess the first time that I was like paying my bills to play, like getting out there and like really making money, was not so long ago, really. John West, there's this artist John West who is still a friend of mine. We still make records, and he was one of the first guys to really take care of the band. We were all very DIY, super indie, driving up and down California to play shows in the drummer's mom's station wagon. But John always had like $200 a man at the end of the show, at least. That's awesome. Kick people down. So he was like one of the first dudes.
So then that was after you moved to LA.
That was in LA. I don't think in Baltimore. I mean, in Baltimore, like I'm saying, we were making money, but not as individuals.
Have you ever had a normal job?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
That's crazy to me. I've only ever known Dru Decaro.
My normal jobs were these. I could probably count them on one hand. First, I was a dishwasher at O'Shea's Pub, now defunct, because it turns out that the chick bartender was like grifting from everybody, and they just burnt the place down. But at O'Shea's Pub was where I met my drummer and my singer of my first heavy metal band.
Oh, that's so rad. You were in a metal band?
Oh, so metal.
Oh,
heavy
that's beautiful.
Metal. So I did that, and then I worked at Ace Hardware for a hot second, mostly because I was a little klepto, and that was a place where you could steal a bunch of stuff to bring back to the band shed. That's where we got all of our extension cables, all of our like various fittings for the air conditioning out in the shed. Like I straight up fitted our band place by working at Ace Hardware. And then third job is I sold art out of the trunk of my car, where we would show up to this gallery in the morning, put as many pieces of framed art as I'm proud of this too, because it's a weird ass thing to do. And we would fill our cars up with all this art, and it was cool art too. It was like Dali and just dope shit. And then you just drive around Baltimore and try to sell it to people.
That is wow.
Yeah, and then I moved to California.
Then you moved to California.
Yeah.
And you moved here. Did you know anybody when you moved here? How old were you?
Yeah, I was like 19.
Okay. So like at that, in my opinion, at that age, moving places is like way less scary because your frontal lobe still hasn't finished forming and you're still just like...
I didn't think I was moving forever. I thought I was coming for like 3 months. Oh. I tricked myself. My mother, in retrospect, is like, oh, we always knew you weren't coming back. I was like, really? Because I wasn't lying. I thought I was coming back. My band at the time, we had just released an album.
Mm-hmm. Were you signed at all?
No.
Okay.
So there was nobody
like paying for
that
anything.
Needed me to come back except for me and my guys. So yeah, there were no powers at B. But all I wanted to do was come out here and get away from my ex-girlfriend for a little bit, because she was too close and she wasn't doing anything except living her life. But I was always hearing about it, and it just pissed me off to no end. And so I was like, fuck it, I'm going all the way to California, gonna ride this out a couple months, and I'll be right back. And I didn't go back.
Okay, cool.
I tried to bring my band out, right? Because they felt abandoned.
Yeah.
But I was like...
Because you did abandon them.
I did, sort of. But what I ended up doing was my one other real job was I started bartending at Viper Room. This may be before we met, but it was not that long ago. It's for sure
before we met.
So this is maybe like, I don't know, within the past 5 to 7 years. And I was like bartending there. And then I was booking shows at Viper Room. And I just told my boys into a science, I was like, just get here. That we can headline Friday night at what I still think is the coolest club on Sunset Strip. Just get here. And these motherfuckers, who I still love, never made it.
Yeah.
And it turns out that moving here and having that test of their, you know, like
how
grit,
committed are you? Yeah.
Yeah, it's the best thing I could have done. I would have rode it out in Baltimore for forever, always thinking that they wanted it in the same way that I did. But as it turns out, they wanted it in a different way than me. And so it was a very immediate way to figure out that, like, you know, you're on your own.
Yeah. That is the one thing we all have in common is we are all on
our damn house. Although my whole experience of life pursuing music and shit has been wanting to achieve the band dynamic, the togetherness, the brotherhood, sisterhood of 4 to 6
that is
mofos.
A big band. Jesus.
It could be 3, but I like a lead guitarist to be able to rip, and I like I like a singer to be able to get away from the mic stand. So I have those like prerequisites.
Because Dru also, in case you haven't had the pleasure of watching Dru perform live, he also is like charisma 3.0 on stage, like
a lot of
just
movement.
like full energy.
Leave that humility on side stage.
Yeah, that is where
for sure. That's my moment.
Where his chill, disappears.
I sometimes think that having,
but it's beautiful. You don't see him. I've watched people who clearly are like, it is a forced energy. Yeah. But you're just stoked to be out there, and it's awesome because you're.
It's very honest.
It adds a lot. Like every time I've seen you with any show, you really let people who might have been like, oh, is it, because there's, I think especially with social media and all that, people are in their heads sometimes and like, is it like cool for me to have fun and like whatever, and you do make it for audience members to go like, oh yeah, I should have fun too. Yeah. Like
I think that's the MO. I think that's like the mission statement of a live show is to set the audience free.
Ideally, but not everybody does that.
No, it's really hard to do. Yeah. Or at least it is really, maybe it's not always hard.
I don't think it's always hard because I've been to.
It's just the best is all it is.
It is great, sometimes and especially when you can get people there without the foundation of those people having to already be like wasted. That's huge.
True that.
Because there's been shows where I've been like, wow. I mean, because listeners probably don't know this unless they know me like pretty well, but I don't really ever drink. Like very rarely do I have a drink.
She just turned down. I offered her some whiskey and she said no.
Which, by the way, is this man who typically has good taste has a bottle of Jim Beam.
Watch what you say about Jim Beam.
In a plastic bottle.
It is plastic. I'm not into that.
And he pulled it up out of nowhere. As I genuinely thought it was like antifreeze or something for a car.
Jim Beam is way better bourbon than it gets credit for.
Well, I wouldn't know.
Yeah,
I've genuinely never tried.
So you just have to take my word on it.
Yeah. I'll believe you only because I don't remember seeing that around like the party house that I lived in college.
Check this. So I was going to tell you where it came from. We had a session in here the other day, and the artist, Kid Indigo's manager was here, and he says, yo, you should go get a bottle. And in talking about that, I relayed this anecdote of something to do with Jim Beam. I don't remember what, but I have plenty of anecdotes with it because I quite like it. Mm-hmm. And so he left to get the bottle. Mm-hmm. He comes back. The manager's pretty well-to-do, and he's bought everybody their own bottle. And
of Jim Beam or like
no,
their own specific
he
alcohol?
just was freestyling.
Oh, cool.
So my partner who was here, I think my buddy Ray was working with me. He got a very glass bottle of Jameson. Kid, he got, I don't remember what he was drinking, but something in glass and really nice. And this manager, bless his heart, who thought he was like paying attention to my story about Jim Beam, he thought he was doing the right thing, gives me the plastic, straight, what is it? You buy it at
It
like
looks very
Costco.
much like someone under a bridge drinking out of a paper bag.
And I'm like, I would have done the Jameson, and I was like, you know what? From here on out, when I tell stories, I have to just always of liquor. You just choose the best one in the hopes that somebody thinks they're gonna do you a solid, and they come. You know what I mean? Like, don't tell them the pop-off
stories
story.
are like, I was a little buzzed off kombucha the other day.
Oh,
The
and
booch
get some
got me.
free kombucha for sure.
Yeah, because I drink so rarely that a strong kombucha will get me.
I drink more regularly, and the kombucha takes me there every time.
Thank you. I'm glad I'm not alone. People think I'm crazy, and
total
my
head change.
Orion once brought me. I was doing laundry, and he like.
Do we name drop him on this podcast?
We do today.
Yeah. Is he a recurring character?
No, he's not
of
actually.
Woes?
No woes. This is a great.
Okay.
He was like being very generous, and I was doing laundry, and he delivered some kombucha for me to like have while I was, because it was when we were living in San Francisco, and being the good boyfriend that he was, brought me a bottle of kombucha.
What?
Super generous. And I had to call him like 30 minutes later and was like, I am too drunk to carry this laundry home on my own.
Oh, that's great. Like, you got that. Yeah, I don't get that.
I was like, I am buzzed. Like, what? I probably hadn't eaten it all that day. Like, who knows? But
what's your where are we at? What do you have here? Brew Doctor? Because you should.
Well, this is Brew Doctor.
Yeah. You should be getting like your
sponsor.
Yeah, for sure.
Should I be like, here? I do sometimes. I get a growler and I go get it filled up because I have an aversion to like the waste created by the amount of bottles of kombucha I'll go through. I don't really like it, so I try to get a growler filled up.
Because in Seattle, you can go. It's on tap everywhere you go.
I go to a spot called Conan Steiner, which is like a artisanal kind of like hipster fancy like general store but they also, which I love, have candy in those like glass jars that you can scoop out. And I'm a huge black licorice fan. Like, I love black licorice.
Get out of
here.
I'm
like 85
so it's
years
those
old.
type of candies where there's black licorice in the middle and the outside is still
so they do
pink
have the
and
British
yellow.
All Sorts. The British All Sorts are one of my favorites, but
yeah, that is probably right on brand with you, but it's very strange. Nobody listening can relate.
No, nobody who knows how to use a smartphone in general can relate. Anybody who knows how to access a podcast is like, what are you talking about?
Are you on the Twizzler fam or Red Vine fam?
No, neither. I want like
right, because you're black.
no
so
sugar
you're
added.
option C. Yeah, okay. Because everybody is either
I'm option
Twizzler
like cowboy. Like, I probably it would be more on brand if I like dipped in stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, like that. I mean,
that's a thing
you're also
that people do sometimes still.
Yeah.
God bless it.
I mean, I'm also like, when I do drink, I basically, like, when I do drink alcohol, it's like vodka on the rocks, and that's basically all I'll do, because I don't like masking it, because I'm like, no, I will like.
I'm the same way. I want to taste it.
I want to taste it.
Yeah.
I want to be aware of how drunk I'm getting.
Totally.
I do like mojitos. I do like margaritas on occasion.
See, now,
but they're too sugary. I have to be somewhere where I know that there's
but
not
the
a bunch
right,
of sugar.
yeah, the right. If it's made well, it's not too sugary at all.
And I mean, so my friends and I do this thing called Artists for Progress in Seattle, where we curate art shows, auction off the art, and then the money goes to, like, we've supported the ACLU, Northwest Immigrant Rights Project, stuff like that. And Rachel's Ginger Beer sponsored us, and I didn't realize that the Moscow mules were pre-mixed.
Ooh.
And I love ginger beer. Like,
too.
I drink ginger beer a lot. And
you know what it goes well with? Jim Beam. Go on.
Noted. I got wasted because I was like 7 or 8 cups in before I even, and I was like, why do I feel so weird? Was I that? Because I'd just gotten back from China. So I thought, like, I'd literally landed back from China like the night before and immediately had to like get ready, help out as much as I could with that art show and do the art show. So I was like whoa, exhaustion is hitting me.
This is why I'm wasted. But as it turns out, you just were just drinking a shit ton of vodka.
Right. And I said to one of my friends, like, whoa, I feel really weird. I don't know what's going on. And she was like, well, you've had like 5 or 6 of those. I was like, yeah, it's ginger beer. Do you think it's just the sugar? And she was like, they're pre-mixed.
Yeah, you're drinking Moscow
And I was
mules.
like, oh, you're saying 5 or 6 because you only got here 2 hours ago. And really, I'm on like 7 or 8.
And not to mention, at that many Moscow mules is like a deathly amount of sugar too.
Oh God, yeah.
That'll just really fuck you up. Like
awake.
that'll fuck you up.
I was
more than
awake and
anything.
drunk until like 3 a.m. I had a great night because
Yeah.
I don't,
I'm not
I
there
don't
for
get
it.
really hungover ever.
Me neither.
Like I don't
God bless it.
really. I just don't really care that much about drinking, and I will not drink unless I'm already in a good mood. I don't have anything else I want to do that night, and I had like, you know what I mean, like the stars, and I know how I'm getting home. I trust everyone.
You're one
around.
of the most dangerous for a couple of my friends' weddings. And
Oh,
that
I
was
thought you
really
meant
great.
at his wedding.
No, not,
Okay.
not at Miguel's wedding. Certainly, there's plenty of people there that could vie for that position. But at Andy Grammer's wedding, I was able to give the speech, and my buddy Josh's
Did you
wedding.
tour with him also?
Yes.
I thought so. Yeah.
A little bit.
Okay.
But with
Wait, we have to, after this, we have to actually talk about your job.
okay.
But finish the story.
Yes. What was so cool about Miguel's wedding, besides the fact that the music was insane and the food was insane, was that he could have had it be a star-studded event,
Yeah.
and it wasn't. It was actually a bunch of homies and family who's been there with him on this considerable
That's
ride.
awesome.
Yeah, it was crazy. If I were him, I would have for sure had Beyonce there, like 100%. Like, why not flex like that? Like, that's my type of non-humility. It's like, let's go. This is my wedding. Like, everybody comes. I want Bruno singing the I Think I'm Gonna Marry You song. Like, I want all the shit.
You're
you
wild.
know? And and her and Nas, to their credit, it was literally a bunch of people who know them really well.
Well, yeah,
and who
that's
really
also
care.
so much less stressful. Like, planning a wedding's already so stressful. You
Right.
also don't want the added stress of, like, PR.
Yeah, they took everybody's
Especially in a
phones,
relationship. Like, that's just a
which is
gnarly
great.
way to start a relationship. Like, to
Yeah.
start, like, a marriage.
A marriage, yeah.
With, like, the stress of that. So
Well, I learned. I even came away from it going like, you know what? I no longer need like some sort of
red carpet wedding.
Yeah, as long as it's people there who really care about us, and maybe to everybody that is so goes without saying. But I don't really dream about weddings so much that
shocked.
comes obvious to me. Yeah, right, exactly. I was like, oh wow, this can just really actually be a celebration of your relationship and not
and just
something.
to me, it's also like a celebration. Just everybody who made either of you who you are, and like. This also may come as a shock, but I don't dream about weddings at all. I more of just like have panic attacks about the idea of
Kicking that can right down the street.
yeah, I'm like, oh man, think of all the people. Well, that would be mad if they don't get placed at certain tables and like
Yeah.
who will do what. Anyways, okay, so you moved to LA. Fast forward, you start going on tour. You went on tour, you said, with John West.
John West, which wasn't really touring so much, but we were traveling.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then Andy Grammer.
Yep.
We
My first real tour was Chrisette Michele, who is a kick-ass soul R&B artist.
okay.
And that was how I came to be considered an R&B like axe slayer among a bunch of rock guys.
Find a good I assume it's literally just like word of mouth is how people find a
This
touring
was
guitarist.
such a twist, man. They really twisted me on this one. What happened was I used to host this weekly jam at House of Blues, RIP, House of Blues on Sunset
Wow,
Strip.
yeah.
And it was an R&B hang. And we had the horn section. We had a bunch of vocalists. And every week on Sunday, all of the touring musicians who were in town would come, and we'd play Erykah Badu tunes and Earth, Wind & Fire and Michael Jackson and shit. And it was just like a rad party at the House of Blues. And for a few years I did that. And so through that, I came to know a lot of the guys and girls who were on tour. But I was the in-town dude. I was hosting that event, and really I didn't grow up in the gospel church or around a bunch of R&B music, so I really was kind of finding my way. I still was like a
Interesting.
rock and roll dude through and through. But I met the dudes who ultimately asked me. It was my buddy Brandon Brown and Kenneth Townsend of the group New Genesis, and they said, hey, come do this gig. And I was like, wow, okay, I'm about to do this R&B gig. And it was, do you know where the Gower Gulch is? On Gower and Sunset?
Yeah, actually, yeah.
And it looks like, for some reason, just smack dab in the middle of Hollywood, it like looks like out of some old Western town.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah, it's totally tasteless and awesome. And there used to be this restaurant there. And we did a gig with this artist, and it was just brutal. It's just not like good, dinner time, and nobody's paying attention, and
That's
the
tough.
artist is doing a lot of covers that they shouldn't be doing and shit. But anyhow, I got to play with that band, and that was really exciting for me. And when it was done, literally out in the parking lot, they said to me, hey, Chrisette Michele leaves for tour next week, and like this was actually, we just had to test and see like if you could hang. So that's what this show was. And so they had me play this fucking horrendous show at the Gower Gulch, surreptitiously,
like, can you
to
stomach?
see like, can I, well, just like, can
And
this
now
dude,
can you fit in with the rest
can
of
you
the
do, can you like play like R&B and soul guitar? And so then we left with Chrisette Michele. And
do you feel like you, because that was such a switch from your, like the music you usually played, did you like practice at home and like learn some R&B? Like, did you start?
Totally.
Okay.
Well, not for Chrisette. I had been doing it for House of Blues, because every week these people were coming to my event, and I couldn't be like the wackest one there.
Oh, you were
So,
playing also at those events?
just like principally that's what I was doing, was hosting it. I'd be like on the mic and introducing whoever's singing or whatever. And it's a thing that they do in LA and in all music towns everywhere. It's just called a shed, or it's called a hang, or it's called a jam, and it's just
Right.
like talk
people come
amongst
to
the
those?
dudes. Yeah, only like cats who play, really, and maybe girls who like to sing and stuff. It's like totally an insider thing, but it happens right now. And if you're in the city, oh, Tuesdays we go to the Federal or wherever it is, and you go and you bring your guitar.
But you go, and then like, how does that venue make money?
Yeah.
Like, why do they want you there outside of like the credit and like just being a part of the culture?
Well, with House of Blues, it was really hard. They definitely were not paying us well.
Because that's a huge venue also. Like, if you're not bringing in people, that's
and there was
that's
10
a
people in
huge
the band.
spot to like staff.
Yeah, we were not making a lot of money, but it is clout to have it there, because we had killer musicians come and
Right.
artists and stuff come and sing with us. So there's that. And venues have 365 days to fill, and they need shows. I tell this to young artists all the time for whom it feels like you got to pay to play, or that the venues are doing you favors when it's your time to get up there and play shows, and that
Right.
you should be apologetic for only bringing X amount of people, or like that the talent buyer is going to like vibe you out and give you a hard time. I hate that whole thing. Venues need talent, and sometimes the talent is going to pack the house and sell a ton of drinks, and sometimes they're not. But if you play a
sometimes-
kick-ass show,
Yeah.
you are valid to be on that stage.
And sometimes also, even if you're a decent sized name or whatever, it could be an off night. You know what I mean? Like, there's just so many factors. That I was just listening to another guest on the podcast was Jessica, who we went and saw the other night. She has a podcast, and she spoke to
She was rad, by the way, at the Comedy Store.
She's so great.
What's her Insta? I'll shout her out.
JMS Comedy. Look for her in your city. She's amazing.
Yep.
She was talking to the woman who runs, I think it's called Laughs in Sacramento. It's a comedy.
LAFFS.
Is that what? Oh, you know it.
Yes.
Okay, awesome.
At least I think I know it, but let's move. Let's act like I do.
Sorry, I also have a little bit of cold, which is why I sound this way. But anyway, she was talking to her, and her whole perspective on it was really cool, where she was like, yeah, I'm not booking people off like how many followers they have or whatever. Like, if you can do a killer set, like, and you're good, I'm going to book you.
That's right.
And I'm going to put on like local talent and whatever. And if
That's
it doesn't fill up, that's okay. Like, but
That's a healthy perspective.
yeah. And I really, because being new to like comedy venues in general, like I'm very new to like going to them and like being aware of that scene, and historically only caring about music. Just the amount of pressure I've seen get put on friends, and the amount of like just the way that people get in their heads so about it. Like, to me, all you should be worried about is your own show, and like the sale of tickets should not be what you're worried about that day.
It's a very complex amount of commerce that goes into art these days, and you could totally be the type to just be flighty and not care at all. And sometimes it works for people, and you end up becoming commercially viable even while you don't care. And then there's other folks who are DIY and who are great artists and run every element of their business as well.
Yeah.
And there's like room for all of that. I, like you just mentioned, think I would love to only care about the creation process all the time and that be it. Like I tell myself that. But here I am owning a studio and being executive producer, quote unquote, and shit. And really the difference is that like I care about the details and that I'm like at the meetings and that I'm like following up.
Well,
on
you're
also
like
shit.
a smart person, so
yeah. But
I think there's like more things that you want to do. Like when you see room for opportunity and something that you're interested in or you're good at or whatever, like that's just how your brain works. You know? Like,
it is like toxic ambition.
I don't think it's toxic. It's just that's just ambition.
Yes, just ambition.
So. Okay, that helps a lot because I had been wondering, like, if you're hosting and doing all that stuff at House of Blues, Viper Room, stuff like that, like, where are you finding time to play? And, like, to this day, like, how do you fit in practice and stuff? Like, do you practice yourself? Like,
I don't
what do
practice very much guitar anymore. I do practice vocals. And
really?
Yeah, because that is, like, the final frontier for me as an artist is to feel as comfortable with my... Comfortable is not the word, but to feel like I have my 10,000 hours singing as I do feel about guitar, keyboard, or production or something like that.
I also didn't know that you had that with keyboards. So that's good to know.
I can play some keyboards. Yeah, I probably am a little shy of 10,000 hours, but I can like hang.
Yeah.
But the vocals, where I find time is when I'm in the car. I don't really listen to music in the car. I just sing.
Belt it out on your own?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's it. And that is just like in LA, you know, you do a lot of driving.
You do a lot of driving.
And so you either are just like...
Do you do it in Ubers?
No, I drive.
I'm just wondering if you
I'm
also
generally
sing
like
in
bringing
Ubers.
gear. No, do I? No.
Because sometimes if I'm caffeinated, I'll be like, hey, turn this up.
I never do it with people in the car. That's just totally cringy.
Well.
But I mean, I'll sing along to a song to the top of my lungs, but I'm doing like vocal exercises.
Oh,
and,
you're like
totally,
me.
Yeah, that type of thing. Yeah, so I do that in the car. But you know, like I strongly suggest that to people who are trying to be on their like whatever's their next level of go-gettedness is there's so much time in the car, and a lot of people are listening to not just a song, but a song they've heard already.
Yeah.
There's like so much of that, like just recapitulating some shit.
And even if you don't know the lyrics, you know the construct of it. Like there's songs that I'll sing in the car that I don't know the words, and I'll just go. In fact, one of my favorite things to do if I'm really caffeinated.
Go on.
Ooh, man. Sometimes because Waka Flocka songs.
Oh, Flocka! Shit, this is actually not surprising. To people who don't know you, this is a very go on. Yeah, we know this
because his songs have like.
I'm having some Jim Beam while you're telling me this
Yeah,
Flocka
please.
story.
Stay hydrated.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like they kind of have like a predictable cadence. There's sometimes that I'll just say whatever whatever I feel like over it. And and just make up nonsense over it.
Welcome to hip hop this day and age. That's even what the artists are doing themselves too.
And it's super fun.
Yeah,
like I'll do it, and it's like I'll do it over that. I'll do it over some other songs, and like sometimes as like a stress relief. Like some people might like bake cookies, but I write like parodies of songs.
You write them with like on the spot, or you literally write them?
Both.
Okay, yeah, that's
so
great.
I'll make it up in the car and be like, oh, that's great. And if I have like if I'm not listening to the radio and I'm like, you know, my phone's hooked up or whatever, I'll replay the song over and over again and just make up parts for the rest of it.
Yeah, good on you. This day
like
and age,
very like Weird Al style. You know?
Amen.
Like I think. Do you remember that? Do you remember that song?
Do kids know who Weird Al is?
God, I hope. I mean, I don't think children are listening to this. I think it's like, it is my hope that high school teachers actually share this with their students for like, hey, look at all these different avenues that you could choose from, right? Because I have somebody on who's like the VP of a aluminum company. I have somebody else on who is a glaciologist.
Ooh, they're bummed out.
I mean, he's in Antarctica right now, like doing samples and stuff. Yeah,
that just gives
wild.
me shivers,
Totally.
and not because it's cold. but because it's fucked.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking. I have on.
I listened to a conservative politician today.
Oh, I thought you meant conservative podcast, like an ongoing basis.
I actually listen to conservative talk radio regularly. If I'm not feeling the vocals, if it's like just too late at night and I've been in the studio all day and I don't want to sing in my car, which happens plenty, I'll listen to conservative talk radio, mostly to like just try to understand what's to it.
Well, yeah, to know like what kind of information people are getting.
I'm so curious, but and rarely do I get any nuggets of like understanding. But this dude today, sure enough, the interviewer asked him, and so you think that man-made climate change is real, right? And he goes, the climate's definitely changing. And I was like, oh, this dude's about to say it? And he goes, but nobody knows why. We're all so confused. And I was like, bruh, we are not all so confused.
Yeah.
You know, like
you are in denial.
Yeah, I can't even go down this road, right? Because like it's just too obvious. But God Almighty, he literally, at this point, they've come to a place where they go, oh yes, the climate is changing, but everybody is uncertain as to why or how.
Everybody who has, I mean,
and just pisses me off.
Because I don't necessarily want to go down that path either, but I will say that sometimes I'm confused, especially when people are religious, where I'm like, oh, so this is God's creation as the earth. You think it's just totally fine to drive it into the ground and treat it with complete disrespect.
Yeah, well, the religious thing is hard because a lot of folks think that whatever happens is ordained. So, like, if the climate's changing, it's because God wanted to do it. Yeah, and which is, like, one of the downfalls of organized religion. Of course, there are many upsides
it's one of
the
downfalls of blind faith, in my opinion.
There is blind faith.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot that organized religion has to offer for people, who really want that and seek that kind of structure.
For sure.
But, anyways, what were we saying?
I don't know what. Oh, well, we were talking about do I practice?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Not religion, guitar.
I don't practice very much guitar anymore, although I'm not over it. I'm not like proud of it. I absolutely will have another era in my lifetime playing guitar where I'll get really back into it,
What do you feel like? And
I play guitar every day. I just don't have a book open and I'm not like on some
You're not like challenging yourself in a way where you're like, okay, this I can't do and I need
It's more as a producer now, which probably doesn't make any sense to anybody who's not one, but there is being a instrumentalist and a technician, and so you sit down and you try to like beat the next best guitarist and try to figure out all of the dark corners of the instrument, and I totally have done that and will do that more in my life. And then there's doing it from a producer standpoint where you are looking at the song as ordained and from angels, and you're trying to figure out how the guitar can help bolster that.
Okay.
And that's not necessarily going, well, how do I play the raddest guitar part that's going to melt faces? You go, how do I treat the song with care?
Right.
And sometimes oftentimes it's with great simplicity. So I'm definitely still digging right now, if you're just curious what's happening this week, I will have my guitar in my lap here. We're in my studio, and I will be searching for the truth. But generally, as a producer, as opposed to as a producer, I'm looking for the primary color that really fits. Go on.
No, I was just saying there was a really great phrase that Matt, who is the music supervisor that was on the podcast, used, where he talks about how for the shows that he's doing music supervision on, he looks for like the XY axis of that. And what you just said reminded me of that, of like kind of like where's like the place that this fills in.
Totally. So, because you still want to. You still want it to be a unique part that hasn't been played before. If you subscribe to the notion that you could even do such a thing, like play anything new that hasn't been played, and something that would turn on young guitarists, something that'd be like, oh, I want to learn that riff.
Oh, that's a cool perspective. I like that.
Yeah, because that is for sure why I'm here, is because guitar players before me played some kick-ass shit, and I was like, I gotta know how to do that.
Right.
So I definitely still feel responsibility to those kids. But then as a producer, you learn, if you're paying attention to the song as a whole, that the guitarist is just, one member of the team.
Right.
You don't want like one instrument to do the whole thing all the time. You want to be able to like toss it around and have there be like a really cool dynamic between the instruments and stuff. And I don't know, if it changes every day. Sometimes we're in here and we're just in fact, just the other day with an artist named Mason, he sat down, he's like, I just want to do a guitar vocal thing. He's like, we don't want to do drums, keyboards, none of it, just guitars and vocals. Okay, well, now the game's changed. Now the guitar part
really matters.
Is really
has to carry
important.
The song.
Yeah, so now that means one thing or another.
And was he on an acoustic or electric?
We did that one on, I'll play it for you. I guess on electric. Yeah,
I only ask because there's that, with acoustic you can do some stuff and then use it also as a rhythmic instrument and stuff. So I didn't know if he was throwing that in there. So then for you, how do you, you answered part of that already, but like, what have you learned and like, how do you feel like producing music has changed the way you are a guitar player?
Oh man, great question. And vastly.
Yeah.
And it is probably my most recent growth spurt as a musician is to really take this production thing seriously and then bring it back to my guitar chair, where forever I've been just like wanting to be the best guitar player in the world and everybody else be damned. And now as a producer, really caring about the lyric. And right there, long time I did not care about the lyric.
Yeah, we've had this. In fact,
yeah,
we had a really good talk about this.
I shouldn't say I didn't care about the lyrics. My favorite band of all time is Rage Against the Machine. And what I loved about them was not only that the guitar parts are just
incredible,
completely unheard of. Also, they had a fucking purpose. And also, they stood for something. And they were consistently... So, I shouldn't say I don't care about lyrics. But with Rage, you have to pay attention to the lyrics.
Yeah.
With damn near everybody else, I really necessarily have to. And then I was studying jazz for a long time, which is instrumental music oftentimes. So like there was no lyric to pay attention to. So there was the era where I was just playing guitar, and then now as a producer, learning to see a bigger picture and then bringing that back to the guitar chair. I think it has assisted me in being more subtle and complimentary and playing the right part all the time. And I will liken it to this. And again, this may date me or something, but
whatever.
There's this band called
I like
Pearl
to have
Jam.
People on here with experience.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to have people on here who don't know what they talk about.
So there's this band called Pearl Jam, okay, one of the biggest bands in the world. And they have two guitarists. Mm-hmm. One is the rhythm guitarist, the other is the lead guitarist. Okay. And this is a dynamic that everybody who plays guitar understands. The rhythm guitarist is generally the less talented one and the one who has the ego, which is more readily appeased and so doesn't need much. Mm-hmm. And the lead guitarist is the one who can play all the notes really fast and who probably wears the leather pants or like whatever, that type of
Such as yourself.
Yeah, well, I have a pair or two. And in Pearl Jam, that's how it goes. There's the lead guitarist who takes all the solos, and there's the rhythm guitarist. Well, once I became a producer, I started paying attention. It turns out that Stone, this is a Seattle band, by the way. You should check them out if you've never heard of them. Yeah. Pearl Jam, Pearl. And the rhythm guitarist is the better guitarist.
Really?
He is bar none, and this is interesting to like 7 people who love Pearl Jam still, but to those people it's very important. Okay, it's important to me. The rhythm guitarist.
Also, there is a ton of people. So I will admittedly say that I probably don't know a single Pearl Jam song off the top of my head, but I didn't even know they were from. I didn't know.
You know
about
some
Seattle.
of them. There's some that are
when they're on the radio or like somebody's like, "Oh, this is Pearl Jam." I'm like, "Oh yeah, I've heard that." Right?
They're inescapable. Some of them.
They are for sure. Yeah. It was just not them and Soundgarden are like the two big bands from Seattle. And like
we're not going to give Nirvana any shout outs out
whoopsie.
Here? Okay.
The two big Oh man, yeah.
Okay.
That's just what first came to mind, but you know what I mean. The ones that have been active in the 21st century.
There you go. Good save.
Thank you.
And I guess I didn't even know Modest Mouse is one of my favorite bands, and I had no idea
Yeah.
they were from Seattle when I
Cool,
moved there.
yeah.
So like, I genuinely don't pay attention to the people in the bands that I like.
I feel like
listen
Modest
to.
Mouse sounds like they're from Seattle in a way where it just sounds rainy on their records.
After knowing that, after knowing they're from Seattle, I went like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Totally
with the vibe here
makes sense.
But oh yeah, they have an insane fan base, both of those bands, and people talk about them like I should know everything about them.
Yeah.
And like,
Yeah.
they do like random shows in Seattle that sell out insanely.
PJ does.
Yeah.
Pearl Jam does. Yeah.
Yeah, they just did one recently at like
That's great.
WAMU or something, like one of the big like stadiums or something.
That's Washington Mutual, guys.
Yeah, in case you don't
In
think.
case you never played there before.
Yeah, right. Have you ever played there?
For sure.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
With who?
Generally with Miguel, but we were there with Drake and
that was when I was living in
Keys.
San Francisco. So
Yeah,
I
you
did not
weren't
know
there
that.
yet. We were there on the Drake tour and with Alicia Keys and maybe
You toured with Alicia
Usher.
Keys?
Oh yeah.
Like for her?
No,
Okay.
with Miguel.
Oh, okay. So the only Miguel tours I knew of were when we first met, which was, I think, he was doing a solo tour, but it was smaller.
Mm-hmm.
And then with Drake,
Yeah.
and then solo tour again, which then he played at Soto Showbox. And,
I experienced that whole time as just one long
oh,
tour.
and Usher. I forgot about Usher.
Yeah.
That was the main one that I remember because
Yeah.
that was around the time that we first met.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand that. I was just confused because I had never actually heard Miguel's music until that song with Wale came out.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
What, Lotus Flower Bomb?
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
love that song.
That's a joint.
But then I think that's also the only Miguel song I know off the top of my head.
At this point.
Yeah.
Wow.
For sure.
He's been out here working.
I mean, I've seen
trying
it,
to get
like,
your attention. And you've seen the shows.
I've seen the shows.
Yeah.
That's the only one I can think of off the top. And there's times that a song has come on and I've been like, oh yeah, that's a Miguel song. That's the only one I can name.
Yeah, well, it's to your credit. You know, like there's a lot of stuff to do in a day, and to fan out on to know every lyric to every song is not necessarily important.
And as we talked about with neither of us are lyric people. And that
Right.
after we had that conversation last time where you'd sent a record to somebody to have them listen to that you did, and they were like, oh, the lyrics didn't really resonate with me. And you and I were both like, who cares about the lyrics?
Right.
And the very next day, I kid you not, I listened to a song that I had listened to my whole life.
Yes.
Which is Blues Travelers' The Hook.
Great.
And for the first time in my life, and this was not even a concerted effort. No, I'd never even listened to the lyrics. I just knew the song.
Yes.
I happened by chance to notice.
It's a song about a song.
Right.
Yes.
And I listened to it and for the first time in my life noticed, and maybe it wasn't that I listened to it. Maybe I actually was watching something was on the lyrics popped up because somehow I noticed.
Genius. Yeah, you're watching Genius or something. Or listening on no?
No, probably not.
Okay.
I don't watch
That's a rapper thing that we're into.
No, I've started to watch the show and I've been like, cool, I should actually watch this because my way of watching shows is usually like in a window where I'm not looking at it. So that's on my watch list of stuff for like right now when I'm sick to watch when I'll actually watch it. But notice that the first line was, it doesn't matter what I say as long as I sing it with inflection. And I think I called you and I was like, dude,
whoa,
this just happened. I was
John Popper.
And like I still don't like, I don't listen really to any lyrics.
He was trolling
hip-hop.
the whole game with that song.
In hip hop, yeah, and it's beautiful. And with hip hop, I listen to more lyrics in hip hop because I can understand what they're saying.
There's just so much to unpack. Like there's just a lot of corners in all this. Yeah.
But like
on one hand,
like
it
the
is a
Coup.
lyrical
The Coup
art
is one of my
form,
favorite
so-
groups ever,
The Coup.
and they have really rad lyrics and really good music behind it. Like I like everything about them.
Can you spit us an example bar? Because I don't know their music.
God no.
Come on.
Never.
You could say it in your podcast voice.
I will not. I will insert some music. I won't say, no. I'm sweating literally and I'm blushing and nobody's here. I won't do it.
Okay.
But they're great. Them, and then like there was an artist who I think actually may still be in prison that I really love named G Dep. He's great. And but like with hip hop, it's different because there's like a story there. And with Rage is also one of my favorite bands, and their lyrics are kick ass because they're for real saying something.
Yeah.
But those are also all artists where I know what they're saying off the bat. Like, I don't have to stop and go, like, what did they say?
Yeah.
Whereas with most artists I do, and most artists I don't really care what they're saying, because I have a really hard time like listening and learning. Like, even when I'm watching a movie, if I'm watching it and really want to understand it, I put closed captions on everything.
Oh, I'm watching closed captions every time.
Yeah.
You know how much stuff you miss? Listen, you guys have to turn on the closed captions. You are missing everything.
You're missing side conversations. You're missing like really relevant background
You
music.
don't know how that character's name is even spelled.
Yeah.
You think it's spelled with a J, but it's a G. There's so much
true.
to come up on. Yeah.
And I don't pay attention to character names at all. So like, forget about even the idea of me like reading or watching Lord of the Rings, because I don't know who's who. So like, if you're going to sit here and talk to me, like I watch Game of Thrones religiously. If you named, I can maybe think of like 2 or 3 characters' names and know who they are, but I just don't pay attention.
You know what else I love about the closed captions is that whenever they're trying to describe a scene, like in the little brackets, and they have like this kick-ass little like adjective for it, it'll be like, you know, breathlessly, you know, it's like whatever it is, and you're like, yo, who comes up with this shit?
It's so great.
When they're just recounting the dialogue, like that's important because again, you're missing some shit. But then when they're trying to explain the scene, you're like, yo, this is absolutely
heart pounding.
Yeah.
Door knocks.
It's great.
Dust falls off.
Oh my god.
Yeah, no, it's really good, especially on a Coen Brothers movies where they really treat sounds in a particular way. They are really good. But at any rate, so we were talking about lyrics, how we don't care about them, and how you've changed that in a more recent way because of executive producing. Was that what we were saying?
Yeah, well, first you're talking about...
I'm going to sound like an idiot for anyone who listened to this and actually paid attention.
And
they're going to be like, Jesus, Lene,
how did producing change my perspective on the guitar?
Yeah.
And it did vastly. And it's changed
on
the
lyrics.
way that I've played. And it's also why, if I can give myself this out, I don't find myself practicing the guitar the way that I used to, is because what I don't need from the chair anymore is like more speed right now. Right. I don't need more crunchy, which is a term that we use to mean dissonant, like out there sounds. I need consonant sounds that I learned when I was in 6th grade. I already learned these sounds. It's just how to make them fit in there.
Do you ever practice? Because I find myself doing this a lot with drumming, because I find it to be more helpful when we're like working on different songs where it's like I'm putting a beat to something that I don't want to just always do boring like 4/4 type stuff. Do you find yourself exploring like different genres? Like I've been practicing, and I'm setting this up with what I've been doing just so you understand the question, because I feel like it's not a clear question really, because I don't know how to phrase it properly. But like I've been watching these like videos with this girl who does really good tutorials on like how to play some like fundamental like Indian music beats and stuff like that. Do you find yourself doing that for like guitar, for the artists that you work with, to bring something different?
Well, Indian classical music is some of the best, most complex, deep music that the world has ever known.
Congolese music is really rad too.
Cool, yeah. All of the, I think West African. Where's the Congo? East, West. It's on one side or another.
It is on one side or the other.
But
wait, hold on. We can pause for a second.
You want to pause?
What's up? Wait, you can come back.
Oh no, I was looking for
they're in the shed. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. My fault.
Yep. So the Indian music is some of the best, most complex music out there. However, what they do really well is sort of antithesis to Western pop music.
Yeah, totally.
So there's not a whole lot I pull from that.
Or just different cultures, different genres, whatever. Like I know that like a lot of when I was first learning drums was spent in jazz, funk, and then like for fun, like some shuffle rock type stuff. Yeah.
Being aware of and knowing how to enjoy different genres, I think, is valuable way beyond my ability to produce or write songs. It's big as a human. It's like on some, are you worldly? Do you understand and accept other cultures?
That's a really good way of looking at it.
It's fucking
That's cool.
huge, right?
Yeah.
And particularly while we're out here like talking about the conservative versus progressive type thing, like, do I listen to and consume stuff that is not second nature to me? fuck yeah, it's the most
Yeah.
important thing I can do as an artist, so that I can then put it through my filter and it'll come out in however it's going to. But yeah, so
Or even know how to access that, I imagine. If an artist is like, oh, I want it to have this feel, that you know what that means, that you're not
Yeah.
like,
I wonder what the last thing was that I consumed that was brand new to me in the pursuit of art. We did just do me and my production partner Jimmy 3 songs for an Indian artist.
oh, cool.
Come think of it, this cat Armand Malik, we did 3 joints for him, and I dug a little bit into my Rag bag of tricks, Rag being the Indian scales, but mostly that artist came here to LA because they want a Western sound.
Right.
So they were the ones that were supposed to bring the Indian. We were supposed to bring the California. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So that was like not really flexing too much on it. But what I have been consuming recently that is brand new to me is fiction.
Oh, yeah. I've been making a concerted effort to do the
Sci-fi.
same. Yeah, because
reading and watching shit that is made up and fantasy and has no basis in reality.
which
and
is
I
so
didn't ever used to do
counter,
that.
I think, to both of what our typical
I was
way
just
is.
biographies and autobiographies all the time. I just needed real stories. I wanted them to be outlandish stories. I wanted it to be Keith Richards' story, but I wanted it to actually have happened, and that's what I was down for.
Yeah.
Now, because I'm writing this comic book and this whole graphic novel thing, maybe that's for another podcast. But
For sure.
yeah, I am chapters into and a whole team
On
into
your own?
No, there's a team.
Okay.
It's the Falconry graphic novel, and maybe by the time this podcast drops, people will be able to go
I'm not
buy
going
it.
to take that long to edit it. Jesus.
Well, I'm not going to take that long to publish it. So,
You're such a buck.
so now I've been reading comic books. Like,
Good.
what? It's insane.
Can
It's
I send you
incredible.
one?
Please.
Maybe 2, because there's my friend DJ did a really cool one with Fantagraphics called Unreal City.
Okay.
And my friends and I used to throw
in.
this party that was like a drink and draw party where we made a zine every week, and we had like some really awesome comic artists there.
The artists on my team are doing drink and draw shit all the time. I don't get invited to those because they don't want me to come and draw. They want me to make
No, I'm a
the music
terrible
and shit,
drawer, but it did release something for me. I
I
found
can
it
come
really
and drink
valuable.
though. Ayo.
I did not drink. I drew. I'm an adult. Yeah, and we got really lucky because PBR was sponsoring it, and to their credit, like, I'm sure they received very little benefit of
That's a kick-ass
sponsoring it,
drink
but-
and draw party.
Yeah, no, it was great. It was like, I think there was like very cheap PBRs. They sponsored it, which meant we also got to give away tickets to like the music festival they did. We got like early access to entering and like getting entries drawn up for their like art can contest and stuff. And they were super, super cool. But like, and it was fun because we came with a theme, but it really, as somebody who has never been comfortable drawing or painting or anything where like you're making something up that doesn't exist, like music is the only thing that I've ever felt comfortable making something up that didn't already exist. Photography, I'm like, I don't want to stage anything. Let me just come see what's up. And if I get inspired, I'll take a picture.
Wow.
But that made me just loosen up a little bit and have fun and do stuff, because I saw some stuff that people who were like really creative but didn't get too detailed with their drawings were still communicating a clear, concise message with a really simple illustration. I
Amen.
think it's
That's the
cool.
production thing, straight up, is like, how do you get to the truth of the matter?
Yeah. So how do you make money?
Me?
Yeah.
I produce records.
Right. But like, what does that mean? You know what so like when I had Jessica.
People want to know how that, like, what's the real mathematics there?
No, I mean, you don't need to give an amount, I guess. Just like when I talked to Jessica, I was like, so like money wise. And so she explained like, and talked about having to like get comfortable with asking for money and stuff like that. Do you want to noodle on that while I go to the bathroom? You can think about it. I'll pause. I'll whatever. I'll just cut this part out.
Yeah, we can take a pause. Back to the point that we were going to make.
Indeed. What point?
Money.
Oh, yes.
So, are you curious about that still?
Yeah. No, I'm super
About-
curious.
About,
Did you start recording again?
Yes.
Okay.
About how the money gets made as a producer.
Well, okay, so as a producer, for sure, also as a guitarist, because I think there's 3 layers here, right? Like, there's a layer of you touring.
Yeah.
There's a layer of studio time as a guitarist. And then also there's executive producing.
Yeah.
And so, like, how does that work itself out?
Yeah, the guitar stuff, or to just go on the road, whether you're playing guitar or any other instrument or whatever it is you're doing, where you're performing, is instant gratification. The money comes right then and there.
Right. Well, it literally gets direct deposited every week. Are you on like a net 90 term type thing?
I'll invoice whenever I feel like it, and then they usually are pretty good about fulfilling the invoice. Clearly, I do not. I don't like strangle that. I don't invoice at any particular time of the month or anything. Just like whenever I remember to do it.
So you agree on a rate up front.
Mm-hmm.
Do you go straight to them with, hey, here's what I am, or they come to you like, here's our budget? Do you guys negotiate that out? How does it work?
I have like a number. I have like a day rate and a week rate and stuff that's just already sort of built into what makes it worth it for me to be away from home and shit.
And so, you know, that's one of those things that it's weird for people when they first start out. You know, you like know that you're supposed to have one, and then I imagine you sorted that out, figured out where the sweet spot was eventually.
Yeah. Everybody can know what a day costs to them, though. You know, not really. I shouldn't talk about like in the universal, but point is I don't know, man. The stratification of wealth is so fucked up right now, but you should be making $100 a day. Okay, like just cause like that should just be, otherwise
like if you're doing something,
how are you gonna pay rent and eat food? I mean, how do you even eat food for that, right? And I don't always make $100 a day,
right?
Oftentimes I make much more. Oftentimes I make $0 in a day, just because that is the nature of art. But I'm a specialist, and when you're specialized, either because you are a guitarist or you're a surgeon or you are the dude who climbs up the telephone poles and fixes the shit at the top. When you're the dude who very few people can do that specific thing, then you have a premium because you've really like built the skill,
right?
Whatever it may be, and you should demand something more than an hourly wage. An hourly wage is generally something, or if you're just talking about having like a job, like I guess how most of the American workforce has it, you know, generally you could be replaced, and so thusly you just go, I'm just going to trade you my time for whatever's the going fucking rate.
Right. And
you know?
well, and to your point, I would also argue as a specialist and for anybody, but I think for specialists, because when you're a specialist, you're kind of negotiating your own terms, whereas when you're a generalist, it's like very dependent on what jobs are available to you and like who's willing to hire you and stuff, versus when you're a specialist, it's a little bit different. I also argue that it is important that people charge what they're worth, not only for themselves but for the industry as a whole.
Oh yeah,
because it's really
it ripples out.
Yeah,
there's a lot of that. My buddy Jimmy, who's my partner in our little production group called Ghost Notes, he's got a t-shirt that says it says no more free shit.
Yeah.
And I just love it. I just think it's great.
And for those of you who don't know, and I know Jessica, the comedian, she and I got into this on her episode too, was like, there's a lot of requests that come through in LA, and I imagine New York. Like, I've never lived in New York, but I've spent a lot of time there. I have found they're a little bit more respectful about people's craft. But in LA,
in New York,
yeah, in New York,
maybe
that's just because I haven't lived there, so I've only like met people at a different capacity than when you're like embedded somewhere.
They like high art.
They like high art.
So they do like have this sort of manufactured value.
Yeah, and they really, they're much less about flashy cars being flashy in New York. Like, they're much more about their business.
Yeah, they don't
there.
even fucking drive
They
cars.
don't drive, yeah. Which is, it helps.
And they don't have sick-ass houses because
Right.
you have to drive way out to Rutherford to have a cool house like that.
It's true.
Yeah, so it does change their whole perspective on value.
Yeah, and just the culture there is very different in
like
general.
You can have an apartment that in New York, considering that culture, is like you have the flat of all flats, and it's like, yo, check out my apartment. Where me being loud professionally and having been evicted from many places, an apartment in any way, shape, or form just kills me. I just can't do it. I just can't have the apartment because I don't fuck with neighbors.
Oh,
More
I never
neighbors
even
don't
thought
fuck
of
with
that.
me, but like I don't fuck with neighbors.
Yeah.
So give me whatever's the sexiest apartment in New York. I'll take the shittiest rundown house in North Hollywood with no grass and with fucking whatever other type of old ass kitchen appliances, whatever the hell it is that people are valuing in their home. I'll take that house because I don't like neighbors.
Yeah, I don't really.
I like cool neighbors. I don't like shitty neighbors.
Same. I lived in like I call them like fake fancy apartment building, and I did not.
It's not for
mess
me,
with
man.
those neighbors.
There's so much of that.
Yeah.
There's so much, and people like spend as much on those as you can spend to have a house. Now this is in the LA market. In New York, it's different, and then there's the rest of the world.
And then there's also like commuting, right? Like that's a different thing too. Like, but because from a house, you basically have to commute. Apartment, you're probably in a neighborhood. But
a lot of people aren't being noisy, so having a sick apartment where there's amenities and the gym is downstairs and stuff is like probably really valuable to them. And I sympathize. I don't empathize.
Yeah, I hear you on that. Yeah,
I just need there to be no neighbors that are gonna call the cops.
Yeah,
That's
my neighbors are
priority
all
number one.
Basically everyone who lives in my building is an artist, and so there's just none of that.
Sick.
Like as a culture, we don't have any of that, and like everybody's very cool if somebody's partying. Like it's very normal to just go over and be like, hey, can you turn it down a little bit?
Man, that's so rare to have a neighbor that'll actually like treat you like a human, just knock on the door, text you.
And my neighbors will be like
bless it.
like if they run into me and they're having a party, they'll be like, oh, did you want to just come? Like we all hang together.
Yeah.
It's all, and it's very cool because, and also like as somebody who has a lot of projects, I don't really hang out with a lot of my friends. I can run into a neighbor, we can get coffee, hang for 20 minutes, and like we both got in some social time, caught up, but like it's not like there's an obligation there because everybody has their own deal going on. We're all pulling different hours.
Yeah.
Whatever. So it's rad. But
yeah.
Anyways,
money.
So I imagine your day rate and your weekly rate and stuff like that has changed over the years.
For sure.
Do you here's a situation, for example, repeat customer from a few years ago. I assume you're just now comfortable being like, hey, my day rate's changed.
Yeah, that is fucked up because a lot of people, it's like a adage in the industry that once you charge somebody something, you can never like re-identify yourself with them, and which is ridiculous. It's not that extreme. It's not that extreme, but there is a lot of that. Like for instance, you don't give somebody something for free as a creative in the hopes that, oh, the next time they come back, they'll understand that I'm really valuable. And in fact, me giving this to them for free, they see how valuable that is. No, it actually devalues you.
Oh, that's what we were saying about LA culture.
That's the hard lesson to learn.
Yes, and that's very normal.
Don't give your shit away for free, not because we're greedy. It's because people pick up on that. And when you give it to them for free, that is how valuable the shit is that you just gave to them. It literally is nothing.
And so when somebody, okay, so then with executive production, so you were saying, like you mentioned before, with day rates, weekly rates for touring, and then I imagine there's like a similar day rate for like studio time that you have.
Yeah, not really. When you're producing, you don't have a day rate anymore. I mean, some people do. There's a lot of different ways to cut it, but
people will pay you for studio time though.
I don't charge studio time. I charge by the project. So actually, let's back it up. We're not going to use the word project either because that is a totally murky term. Generally, I charge by the song, let's say.
Okay.
Which we call a record or a project or whatever. So if somebody wants me to produce and help write a song, then that costs a number.
Right.
And it will take however long it takes. We like to do it in a day, but oftentimes it takes many days. And so I generally don't charge by the day unless you have somebody who has a really deep pockets. And if there's a label involved or something, we're in the era of like tons of independent artists. But independent artists, if you're trying to get a kick-ass piece of art at the end, which is my number one priority, it's never been about the bread. It's about like, are we proud of what we've made?
Yeah.
when you're charging by the day and then suddenly they are not going to come back in to re-sing this part because it's going to cost them a couple extra $100, and then you end up going, well, we're just going to settle for this vocal performance, because you start just really compromising the art. So
that makes a lot of sense.
So instead, it's like, if you want me to produce a song, I have a hard time. I don't necessarily want to just tell a number, because it is different depending on who's the purse, right? But let's say median's about $5,000.
And I imagine it's also different on like
People
the
should
style.
know.
Like there's a lot of different things.
Well, the style's not it, because to me the style does not dictate my work. I'm gonna put in a fuck ton of work, no matter what the style is. So to me, it's just about like my time and expertise and taste and stuff. And I say, about $5,000 a song is like, on the low end. It's more for a label and maybe less for a homie. Okay.
Right.
But it's all in. So now, however long it takes for us to get the most kick-ass song and recording, that's how long it's going to take. And it's going to cost that amount of money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So a lot of days.
But then do you get residuals on that at all? Or no, because they already paid you up front?
Oh, no, you get residuals.
Okay.
But the trick is that a lot of the songs don't come out.
Right.
And not because they're not good, but because in the interest of perfection and greatness, we as artists create way more than we actually set free.
Yeah.
And some artists are really good at coming in, and whatever we work on comes out. Christian French, the artist who I just executive produced that joint, every song save for one that we've ever done, we've released. And I think that one speaks to his urgency as an artist. He's just like young and of that era. Now is his time, and he just sets it free in a way that is really inspiring. Two, we really understand one another. So the art that we like from the jump, the first song we did, we struck a nerve. So there's that. But then there's other artists who are every bit as cool, but there's 10 songs in my hard drive that the world's never going to hear, while we are still trying to search for like the one,
Yeah.
And so that's when I talk about, well, I didn't make anything that day. I might still make my production fee, but if the song never gets set free and we don't let the world hear it, then we don't get a chance to assess its value and have it be valuable to other people and have it be a part of their story and shit. So a lot of music just never comes out, and you still and thusly you better be like in it for the art,
right?
Because otherwise you'll get fucked up real quick.
Yeah, for sure. That's so interesting.
So when you're on tour, there's no such thing as that. You show up, you play the show, and you get paid. And there is no like just investing in 5 songs in the hope that the 6th song becomes the one. We showed up, I want the bread. But that's what we call short money.
And then you also have worked on music while you're on tour, which to me is really insane. Like I saw.
Yeah, you saw the bus, right? You came on our tour bus.
And I was super impressed because you guys but when I say you guys, it was
Vic.
It was the Vic Mensa tour.
Yeah, he had the studio in the back, and we used it every night. We recorded every night.
And that's what was so cool was that after that show, he had that DJ set, but then you guys were right back
to
there
the studio,
making music, and there was no messing around. And it was.
I'm not like that on tour. On tour, I want to go see my friends and shit. Like I want to go eat someplace I've never eaten before. I don't feel like, damn, I need to get in the studio. When I'm home, I'm like, I don't need to eat any new foods. I don't need to see anybody. I need to get in the studio with my homies when I'm on the road. So I have a very black and white situation. But on that tour, that was the Jay-Z tour, we got a lot of work done.
Yeah, and it was cool.
That's
like everybody had like a really good, like you could tell everybody really, even down to like those video guys who were awesome, like really cared.
Shout out Jake Osmond.
Yeah, him, and what was the other guy's name?
Conrad.
Yeah,
he's the stylist.
Yeah, he was amazing. He does like insane leather work.
Yeah,
those guys were both really awesome.
I don't know if stylist is the right term for him. I should figure out what he wants to be called. He's basically just like a fashion.
He's like he's very good at like what he does. Like I was because Vic looked amazing on that, and then I found out he was wearing one of my favorite designers, which is Pierre Moss, and I was like, oh, that's why, because that's
you like that.
Oh my
that
god,
outfit was crazy.
I was like, Vic, where can I really want that outfit.
He's like, where can I get that? He's like, you can't.
Right. I was like, who made it? I want one. And then I was like, Lene, what are you going to do with red leather matching pants and jacket?
Right.
Doesn't matter. Who knows? I'll wear it around the house.
Where is that outfit? It's somewhere in a closet right now.
God.
Yeah.
Hey, Vic, if you're listening.
It's probably not in the closet hung up at all. For sure, it's like crumpled at the crib.
But yeah, I was super impressed. And so that's really awesome. Let me think. What else did I want to ask you? Because I guess, like, do some people who do what you do they have, like, managers that manage all that stuff for them? Is that normal?
I have a manager.
You do?
Yeah. Producers have managers, for sure. Really important. Really important to be part of a team and to know how to delegate tasks and know what people around you are great at and then have them do that, right? It's like, that's like just leadership, I think, probably 101. So I have a manager, Kevin Kalame. He's great. And he helps me, one, do the stuff that I could do or that I used to do, but which I don't want to do, but on the other side, he like does stuff that wouldn't even occur to me and makes phone calls that I would think are out of bounds.
What are some of each of those things in those categories? Like, name some of the stuff that you do. I assume
Andy Grammer is a perfect example. Like, that's one of
Okay.
my best friends for forever, and we've never written a song together because, well, I shouldn't say we never. We used to be in a band when we were like young, but since our careers have blown up, when we get together, it's just on a friendship basis. It's just like we're around his kids and we're like, you know, I know his family. And so we sort of just put the professional thing to the side. And then Kevin's like, wait a minute, you and Andy are friends. Like, why don't you guys write songs anymore? I'm like, I don't know. No reason really. And he's like, okay, well, let's do it. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay. And so we're gonna do it.
Okay, that's awesome.
That's not really that groundbreaking of a notion, but sure enough, there are many examples like that.
It's one of those extra things that, like, it just helps somebody else. Sometimes, like, pointing out sometimes the almost obvious.
The other thing that's
helpful.
the most important thing, and this is like maybe not just about the dynamic of a producer and a manager, or artist and a manager, but is having somebody who can be the pit bull so that I don't have to, because in order to get paid, you do have to raise your voice sometimes or be obnoxious. It's like that in the world and also in the game of intellectual property, where the value of something swings wildly. Like, what's the value of a song? Well, the value of the coolest song that I ever wrote, which is on my hard drive that nobody's ever heard, is one thing. And then the value of Macarena is the other thing. And then everywhere in between, right? So it's like totally arbitrary.
Yeah.
So either I get to run around and try to demand that value while also being cool.
Right.
And by cool, I mean like have the artist want to come work with me and not think that I'm just in it for the bread.
Well,
but
and
like,
also
he would do this for free but
that manager's there.
That's what you need. You really need that. And it's been so outlandish to me. It took me a long time, really, actually, low key in my career to come to that place where I wasn't just representing myself. For the longest time, I loved having my hands in all parts of it.
Right.
But I wasn't demanding shit, and I wasn't probably getting paid my worth, and I wasn't doing the utmost because I was probably erring on the side of being fun to be around and like, oh yeah, Dru's loyal, more so than erring on the side of Dru is valuable.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So now, or not now, but in any case, whenever I have that cool artist manager dynamic, not only do I get to send him in to do have those types of conversations in a way where I get to come across like I'm just the artful one, but I actually just get to be the artful one. I can just clear my head and be like, let's write the song.
Which I imagine also just impacts where your head is at when you're working with somebody or like in answering a phone call or whatever.
Yeah. It changes everything, really.
Yeah, because when you're on the end of bringing up money too, it really changes the dynamic of stuff. And like, I mean, it's weird because when I'm on the end of asking for money and like saying like, hey, here's my rate or whatever it may be, or like, here's what I want to make it worth my time, I feel very vulnerable and weird, usually, depending on the thing.
It's not for us. It's not me. It's not the art. It's the least artful part of the conversation.
Totally.
You know?
But what's crazy is when I'm on the receiving end of those conversations,
doesn't seem weird.
I don't have any more or less. I don't put any kind of anything into it, but I'm also...
Man, you got to learn that lesson so many times, right?
Yeah,
and
but I think that's also who we are, because there are some people that I've talked to that I've seen them change the way that they think about somebody. And I'm so, like, I'm very much eyes on my own paper kind of person. Like, I am not somebody who looks over and goes like, especially like, you know, another whatever, like another photographer, another like digital strategist, any of that stuff, like consultant stuff, whatever. I would never look at somebody else who does any of those things that I charge for and go like, who do they think they are charging that much? I'd be like, oh, cool, if you're able to do that, rad.
Yo, I'm the same way, and that's what's so crazy about this preconceived notion that we have where I'm like, I don't want to have to speak up because then they'll see me some kind of way.
Because
and
some
yeah,
people
like
do.
My
That's
girlfriend,
the thing,
we were talking about this before we turned on the mics, but you know, she is out here modeling, and similarly, that can be from free to
very paid,
riches beyond your wildest dreams. And like, really the difference is like, will you demand it or won't you, you know, because it's all art, so it's subjective as to whether it's good or not. And so I try to impress upon her that she's valuable and worth it, and she should ask for the shit right up front. And in doing that, I'm really just trying to tell myself, really. I mean, it's really like...
It also makes you more accountable.
Yeah, right. Because you're like having a professional experience now. You know, I don't like having to always this is all favor-based. No, listen.
No. I mean, by you talking to her about that, it makes you go like, oh, well, I can't be doing stuff for free if I'm telling Kayla to
exactly.
charge.
I'm telling myself, when it's coming out of my mouth, I'm literally like telling myself. But yeah. She does a great job of listening to me tell her that, even when she knows that I'm not always doing it myself.
That's kind of her.
Yeah, and she sometimes is getting paid really well. She's in Jamaica right now doing it, and then other times she does it just for free, and it's just kind of the world we live in.
Which is part of it also.
I shouldn't say we do it for free. She probably doesn't do it for free, but there is like a bartering system.
Yeah.
And that's just part of this creative thing.
I mean, I was talking to somebody the other day where they were like, and he's like, it's my cousin's roommate, Keenan, and he's great, and he is signed with an agency, everything. He's booking rad work for Nike and all this stuff. And he was saying like, yeah, you know, sometimes we're coordinating shoots, and like we were just talking about some people expecting other people to like pick up the bill for them. And he was like, yeah, like sometimes we're not getting paid, and it's like a cool photographer and a makeup artist and whoever with a vision, and we just want to make what we want to make for our own selves. And I was like, yeah, that's part of modeling that I think a lot of people don't know about.
Yeah, that it is art too, and so
you need to
there's a lot of the value is just in doing it.
In doing it and taking that risk of something that you want to be cast for. And what's amazing to me is a lot of casting directors and people who do casting are not able to have a vision on their own. So like I've done some acting and modeling, and like I was doing an audition the other day for something, and the casting agent was like, hey, you're great and you got everything right, but can you put on some lip color? And I was like, yeah, sure. And she was like, it's just because they're not going to be able to visualize lip color on you.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's wild, because I literally have lips. It's not like you're saying like put on a wig. You know, like,
yes,
and so it's interesting that like you need to show.
Check you out. You're up here on your model game. Like, do you see?
Well, I'm just like, my lips are there.
I came in exactly how I was supposed to be. Yo, that's what I'm trying to press upon Kayla is, well, one, they will put makeup on her. Mm-hmm. And she'll all the while know that like this isn't what we need, and then the photographer will look at her and go, "Can we just wash all that off?" Because like how she walked in is how we want her.
Well, yeah, because she also has a perfect face.
Because she's perfect, yeah. And she can just make an obscene amount of money, and that is the most frustrating thing for me with her work. Is I don't necessarily know the self-deprecating artist in this is like, you know, are we gonna be gazillionaires? But then we can look at one another and be like, oh, you're
both
gonna
good at what you do.
it. You're gonna crush it. She's gonna crush it, and she's gonna just be the sugar mama 100%. Just putting it out there.
Yeah, she's great. It's just weird because it is one of those things that like it's there, and then you're just waiting for like the right casting thing to like align itself or whatever. Like it's not like with music where you can like put out your own stuff into the world and make it happen. Like, and with modeling to some extent you can. Like, there's a lot of people who set up their own shoots and do that and then grow on Instagram and then eventually get hired, but that's like its own hustle.
Right.
And it is really interesting. In fact, I do plan on having, like with you, like we're here talking about producing, but I intend on talking to several. I kind of want to do like a series of producers because what you do and your background and being a touring guitarist is a totally different thing than like the hip hop producers I know who like that's their world, because that's a totally
in our
different...
back studio right now. There's a hip hop session going on. I don't know if people could hear the bass bumping throughout our podcast here, but
I don't know if they can. I don't know if they can hear that or if they can hear the airplanes landing. I'm not sure.
Yeah. We're in the
Time will
city.
tell.
This is the urban
environment
right now,
of just
sure.
north of Hollywood.
Just north of Hollywood. But yeah, the production, the producers of this trap scene maybe have a different experience than I do, but at the end of the day it's art, and so it ought to be wildly different. It ought to be as completely unique as can be,
Definitely.
Who else do you want to interview who does what I do?
Well,
I'm gonna tell you if they're worth your time.
I don't necessarily. There's a few people I have in mind, but I've been noodling around with it, and then there's also a few people that I'm just gonna hit up and be like, hey, like, you're a producer, but they're like very kind of niche. Like, who's a producer you respect? And then I'll just hit them up on my own.
Yeah.
But I have like a little bit of a decision matrix that goes into doing all this. And one of the elements in it is like how rad is someone's personality. So I don't want to reach out to anybody until I know what their vibe is, because less than ideal is having someone on here who's like a yes and no answer kind of person, or like whatever. Like, I just don't.
Right. And some producers are like that.
A lot of producers.
Because they're like the behind the scenes dudes. Although less and less, because now producers are artists and it is like much more of a hodgepodge of stuff.
Like my friend Jayhawk, I'm thinking of asking him. We were at a party last night and we were just having fun, so I didn't want to bring it up. But he's a really rad producer, and he went from doing like very much big in like the whole jerk movement. Like, he was in the Rejects.
Sick. It's dude from the Rejects.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know him through Skee or
Malcolm?
No? Through Malcolm.
Yeah.
Was Malcolm in the Rejects?
No.
Oh, okay. They're like skinny, you know what I mean? Like, I could see him being.
But
in that
they
group.
I don't really know how they know each other, but they've known each other for a while, and so I've been thinking about asking him.
Cool.
Because he's such a good person.
So
and
what's
he's like
he doing?
The nicest guy.
He's making records?
Yeah.
Cool.
And he did, what's cool though is that he did a song with Kitty Pryde, who I think is like rad. And
hell yeah.
I think he did one also. He's done like a few different cool things, and we've hung out a couple times in the last few years. And I kind of want to do like a drum and DJ set with him. I think
me and
really
Kick
fun.
Mix did something with them, I think. Like through DJ Skee, we did, because I can remember the dude's denim jacket. It had said Rejects on the back. It was a cool ass jacket.
Were you at that Fantasy Factory thing with us? Is that why?
No, I missed that day.
That was.
I was on tour
day.
and I missed the Fantasy Factory day. Is that place even there anymore?
I don't know.
Oh, how did I miss that day?
You missed that day, and that was the same day that we did a show with, Theophilus London and Friendly Fires. And it was awesome. It was probably one of like just such a good day of lined up rad activities.
Yo,
that was also.
I was missing. All
and I don't
types
mean
of
to be a
shit back
weirdo
then.
and like, it's not even really a name drop. It's just more of an extreme like, thing drop. But like, at that party, Will.i.am arrived on a helicopter.
Oh, straight up.
Like, it was the weirdest. It was a very rad, odd party.
Will.i.am on a helicopter sounds absolutely
spot on,
appropriate. Yeah,
he's such a lovely man. It was just
they
like
put out a
so
comic
funny.
book too. Matter of fact, this is on
like Black Eyed Peas did, or like
Black Eyed Peas.
Okay.
Yeah, it's called Masters of the Sun, and they have been part of the inspiration into the Falconry comic book.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
Is it really? I assumed kind of like Gorillaz had something to do with it.
Gorillaz probably have done it best.
Yeah, because they're
so far.
Yeah, they're.
But do you know what? So did Coheed and Cambria.
What? Really?
Yeah, Coheed, every one of their lyrics is from the comic book. It's all a story.
That's how little I look
Coheed
into the
and
bands I
Cambria
listen
are
to.
the two, the hero and heroine of the story.
I knew nothing of that.
Yes, Coheed and Cambria.
I had no idea where their name from.
Keeping the
came
Secrets
from.
of Silent Earth. Yeah, so Coheed did it great. I mean, shit, Kiss did it well. There's a lot of people who have been, have put sounds and visuals together in really awesome, kick-ass, left-of-center, childish ways, and I too am doing that. And
I'm
so
happy to hear that.
I'll share it with all y'all.
What else, before we like wrap this up, what else do you feel like you would want people to know about the behind the scenes of being a producer? Like if you had to get a message out there to people who want to produce and do what you do.
Like tips of the trade. Yeah.
Or even just things to keep in mind. Tips of the trade for sure, or something like inspirational, something that you're like, hey, I wish that I would have like come to this conclusion earlier on in my career, stuff like that.
Yeah, that's a great question. One,
you don't need to have just one. You can have a few.
Man, I don't know, because it's such like a personal journey that
Totally.
everybody should just do whatever it is they're doing. But there is way more shame in not sharing whatever it is you're working on than there is in sharing whatever it is you're working on. So
Don't make such strong eye contact with me when you say that.
And like I'm saying, when I'm talking about, like I'm talking to myself as much as I'm talking to you or anybody else out there, it's like totally reflective. So, but I think young people these days totally get that. They don't have shame. People don't even experience shame anymore. But if you are experiencing shame as a creative, it's way more shameful to create, to be a conduit for beauty and then not share it. I think that setting it free in whatever way you do, either online or in a gallery or at a coffee shop or whatever, I think that that's way cooler. Even on your worst day, it's cooler to go out there and give it out there. That's one. And number two
That's so
is
beautiful.
Yeah, cool. I hope that I will live up to it one day. And then number two is no more free shit. Says my partner Jimmy Gooch. Just
shout out to Jimmy's teacher.
Demand your value and don't feel like anybody's doing you any favors by booking you at the show or asking you to do a remix. They're not doing you any favors. Like art is like the most heavy thing ever. So no more free shit,
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah.
The question that I ask everybody at the end of their interview is, what area do you want to hear like a podcast like episode like this about? Like what area or like final product do you want to hear the behind the scenes of, or a specific person? Like either one goes.
Neil Gaiman. Neil, Gaiman. I still don't know if it's Gaiman or Gaiman. I've just become a super fan of his. He wrote Coraline, the film Coraline.
Oh, wow, yeah.
That's how people who are not immersed in comic book and sci-fi culture know him, is through that movie. But he actually has created an obscene amount of fantastic stories and worlds, and this year I'm literally reading everything that he's written. I went to the Iliad yesterday, which is a kick-ass used bookstore in a town just north of Hollywood called North Hollywood, and I bought a new Neil Gaiman book. Anyhow, I would love to have you either interview that dude who lives in LA, or I'm just into like writers right now, people who write fiction. I don't even know who these people are. They're so quiet and literally behind the scenes. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, we're out here pretending as producers and podcasters that we're like behind the scenes. We ain't fucking behind the scenes.
Right.
These people who like novelists are behind the fucking
It's amazing.
scenes.
Yeah.
And these people are nuts because they're like conjuring up these worlds, like I gotta write a 3-minute song and it only has to make sense within the context of that 3 minutes.
Yeah.
People who like create a whole novel, anyhow, you get it. And so that's my answer.
That's awesome. Thank you. And thanks for being on.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, we made it. I know that was a long one, Some of these tend to do that, which I don't mind. I have a really good time. I know that I enjoy it on other podcasts when people are really into what they're doing and a great conversation is going. Hopefully you feel that was a great conversation. Anyways, please do look up Dru on social. His handle is Falconry on Instagram. It's linked to in the description of this podcast. You can also just look up Dru Decaro, and he will pop up on Instagram and Twitter. Decaro is spelled Decaro. And obviously, if you could subscribe, rate, review this podcast, that is super helpful. It's also great if you share this with friends. If you know someone who would be into this, please do send it to them. If you want to support this way in other ways, outside of everything I just listed, please feel free to directly Venmo me at Lene-Cook. You can use promo codes for Hotel Tonight or Soothe, which are two of my favorite services that I have promo codes for. Hotel Tonight is pretty self-explanatory. What it doesn't also explain in the title is that they're really quality hotels and it's a really easy booking system. You can download the app and then on your first booking, use LCook61 to save on your first stay. The hotels are super quality. I've enjoyed every stay that I've had with them. And then as you work your way up their points, which is actually pretty easy to do, you get discounts on future hotel stays as well as really great in-app concierge services. Because if you're anything like me, you like to request rooms that have a bath because I like to take baths because they're really nice. And fun fact, I learned this after a breakup, that laying in a warm bath releases whatever chemical it is that you get when you are getting hugged. So if you're lonely, take a bath. It does the same thing, and a bath won't break up with you. It will just maybe someday break. The other app that I like is called Soothe. Soothe is for in-home massages. You can get it in most major cities. It's super great. You can book sports massages, prenatal, couples massages, deep tissue, and I think Swedish is the other option. I'm a big fan of sport massage. I work out fairly frequently, and I think I put my body through a decent amount, and I find it really helpful for getting into my hamstrings and hips and quads, and being, on a computer and then also playing drums and taking photos does the same thing to your back, which is make it hunchy. And so they really help get in there and get into my forearms, which is something that as a drummer get pretty tense. Soothe is awesome. If you download the app, you can check it out and then use code LRZ to save $20 on your massage. That will then save me $20 on my next massage. And the rates are pretty competitive. Like it definitely looks pricey on the upfront, but you don't have to travel somewhere, which means you don't have to pay for parking / Uber or whatever it is that you do to get places. And they come straight to your house, which means that when I'm done, I basically just go straight to bed, which I love. Because nothing is less relaxing than getting a massage and then hopping on a very bouncy bus for 20 or 30 minutes to go home. So please do use those. Recommend this app to other people. Share it with people. Any good pull quotes you want to pull, do let me know what those are. I would love to hear what parts you like best, what you learned from. Hopefully some of this helped offer just some moral support. And thanks so much for listening. Find me on Twitter and Instagram at Lene-Cook, LYNAECOOK. And if you are in touch with Dru's request, man, I'm spacing on his name. I think it's Neil Gaiman. I think Dru went back and forth on this as well. I looked him up and saw that he has a speaking opportunity or speaking thing coming up in May of 2019, which I think Dru and I might go check out. But if you know anybody who knows him and can help get him on, that would be insane. It would be super awesome. So please do just keep, the feelers out for that. Thanks again and have a great day.